My husband stole my business, so I took everything from him. I still remember the exact moment my world shattered. I was sitting in my home office, reviewing the latest quarterly reports for Everglow Skincare, the company I had built from nothing. My name was on every patent, every design, every business deal. I had spent 7 years creating this empire. 12-hour days, sleepless nights, sacrificing vacations, birthdays, anniversaries, all for this dream. And now it was worth over $350 million. But then my husband, Mark, walked in. Tall, polished, always the charming businessman, except he was never actually good at business. His father had handed him his own failing company, and instead of fixing it, he let it crumble. So he latched onto mine instead. And today he came in holding a stack of legal documents. "What's this?" I asked, flipping through the pages. A divorce settlement. But as I skimmed further, my stomach dropped. It wasn't just a divorce. He was taking Everglow. "I'm sorry, babe," Mark said with a smug, infuriatingly fake sympathetic smile. "But legally, since we started Everglow while we were married, it's considered a joint asset, which means when we split, I get half of everything." My hands shook as I gripped the papers. "But I built this." I snapped. "This is mine. You didn't even." Mark sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Look," he said, "I know you're upset, but you should be thanking me. I handled the business side, the investments, the expansions. You're the creative one, but this is out of your league. I'm just making sure Everglow stays strong." I felt rage burn through my veins. "So you're taking it from me? My company?" He smiled. He actually smiled. "Not taking, sweetheart, just leading." And just like that, I knew. He had planned this for months, maybe even years. The private meetings, the sudden requests for shared accounts, the way he had quietly transferred stock options into his name. He had played the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to steal my empire right from under me. But Mark underestimated one thing. Me. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. Instead, I signed the divorce papers, nodded, and walked away. For the next 6 months, I watched as Mark ran my company into the ground. He fired my best employees, the ones who had helped me build Everglow. He cut costs on formulas, suppliers, and marketing, chasing quick profits instead of long-term sustainability. He rebranded the entire company, replacing my vision with his own half-baked ideas. And within a few months, Everglow was hemorrhaging money. While Mark scrambled to fix his mess, I was already 5 steps ahead. See, before I signed those divorce papers, I made a tiny adjustment in our business filings. I still owned one key patent, the most important formula Everglow had ever developed, the one that made the company a household name. Without it, Everglow was nothing. And now, I was taking it back. With millions in savings and a network of industry experts who despised Mark, I launched a new company, Nova Beauty. Within 3 months, it had exploded. My old customers, they followed me. My top employees, they left Everglow and joined me. My suppliers, my manufacturers, even my top retailers, they dropped Mark and signed contracts with me instead. Everglow's stock plummeted overnight. Customers boycotted. Lawsuits rolled in. Investors abandoned ship. And Mark? He was drowning. Then, just as Everglow was on the verge of complete collapse, Mark came to me. I'll never forget that day. He walked into my new office, my empire, my throne, wearing a cheap, forced smile. He was desperate, exhausted. He looked nothing like the powerful man who once stole my company. "Look," he started, "I think we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe we should partner up. Everglow and Nova together. We could." I laughed. Actually laughed in his face. "Mark," I said, my voice like ice, "Everglow doesn't exist anymore." He blinked. "What are you talking about?" I slid a folder across the desk. "Your board just accepted my buyout offer this morning," I said. "Everglow belongs to me now." His face turned white. You wouldn't." "I already did." Mark collapsed into the chair. running a shaking hand through his hair. I leaned forward, my smile razor sharp. "You thought you could steal my dream?" I whispered. "You thought you could take what I built and push me out." I stood up, circling him like a predator. "Now I own everything. And you? You have nothing." His mouth opened, but no words came out. "And just so we're clear," I added, "you're not getting a job at Nova. Not now. Not ever." His shoulders slumped, defeated. "And as for your little leadership skills," I said, tilting my head, "turns out you're not the businessman you thought you were." Then I gestured to the door. "Security will escort you out." Mark left that day a broken man. Everglow was absorbed into Nova Beauty and erased from history. And me? I had everything. My company, my power, my revenge. And as I stood in my penthouse office that night, overlooking the New York skyline, I realized something. I didn't just win. I had buried him. And the best part? He did it to himself. The day Mark walked out of my office for the last time, I knew one thing for certain. He wasn't done with me yet. Men like him don't just accept defeat. They don't crumble gracefully. No, they lash out, desperate to regain control over a world that has already left them behind. And Mark? He was the worst kind. For a few weeks, I didn't hear from him. Silence. I thought he might have finally realized that he lost, that he should cut his losses and move on. Then, one morning, I received a call from my head of legal. "Lauren, you're going to want to see this." I barely had time to respond before she emailed me a link. Mark was suing me. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. His claims were laughable. Breach of intellectual property, fraud, unfair business practices. He accused me of stealing Everglow's customers, of sabotaging him, of conspiring against him from the beginning. It was desperate and pathetic. I forwarded the lawsuit to my legal team with a single note: destroy him. Within 2 weeks, the case was thrown out. Mark had no evidence, no case, nothing. But instead of crawling into the hole he belonged in, he made one final, desperate move. I woke up one morning to find my name plastered across every business news outlet in the country. Every article was filled with lies. I was portrayed as the ruthless, gold-digging ex-wife who had manipulated her way to the top, who had destroyed her husband just for fun. Mark was suddenly the tragic victim, the brilliant businessman betrayed by the woman he trusted. It was a strategic hit job, designed to ruin my reputation. And for a moment, I almost admired the effort. Almost. Because there was just one problem. Mark had forgotten who he was dealing with. I didn't panic. I didn't release a statement filled with weak denials. I didn't play defense. Instead, I went nuclear. I had everything on him. The fraudulent financial reports, the insider trading, the off-the-books deals he had made while running Everglow. I had proof, so I used it. I leaked every single dirty secret to the press. The same journalists who had been so eager to paint me as the villain, they ate up. Mark Reynolds under investigation for financial fraud. Former CEO of Everglow faces criminal charges, could face prison time. Exclusive. How Mark Reynolds' greed led to his downfall. The FBI got involved. His former investors sued him. His business contacts dropped him overnight. And in the span of a single month, Mark Reynolds was completely, utterly ruined. He didn't just lose his company. He lost everything. I wasn't expecting him to show up at my office. Not after everything. But one evening, just as I was getting ready to leave, there he was, standing in my lobby, looking like a ghost. His expensive suit, wrinkled. His perfectly styled hair, messy. His confidence, gone. He wasn't the same arrogant bastard who had walked in here months ago, ready to take what was mine. He was hollow. "Lauren," he said, his voice hoarse. I stared at him, expression blank. "You're trespassing." He let out a weak, humorless laugh. "Come on," he said. "You've won. You don't have to keep kicking me while I'm down." I tilted my head. "Kicking you while you're down? I repeated. I took one step closer, my voice ice cold. Mark, you did this. You could have left with half the company, millions of dollars, and your dignity. But you got greedy. You wanted it all. You wanted me destroyed. I leaned in slightly. And now? I whispered. You have nothing. He swallowed hard. Lauren, please. I don't have anywhere else to go. There it was. The begging. The pleading. I let the silence stretch, watching him squirm. Then I smiled. You know, Mark, I said, I read something interesting the other day. His brows furrowed. I pulled out my phone, scrolled for a second, then read aloud. The average cost of a single studio apartment in New York is about $3,000 a month. But for a man with a criminal record and a destroyed reputation, probably a lot more. Mark flinched. I slid my phone back into my pocket. So, good luck with that. He opened his mouth, but I was already walking away, just like he had walked away from me. And as I stepped into my private elevator, I heard him break down behind me. Pathetic. 1 year later, I was sitting in my penthouse office, reviewing Nova Beauty's latest quarterly report. $700 million in revenue, industry dominance, unstoppable growth. Mark, on the other hand, I hadn't heard from him since that night. Rumors said he had left the city, that he was living off what little money he had left, trying to force stay out of prison. But honestly, I didn't care, because I had won. And this time, there was nothing left of him to fight back. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. Not bad for a woman who was just creative.